Hello, everyone. Welcome to the State of Indiana, City of Lawrenceburg, Dearborn County, from the Crossroads of America, launching a Vision for a Brighter Future presentation. My name is Jung. I serve as the CEO of the Interstate Traveler Company, and we are the builders of the hydrogen superhighway. You received an email, so those who have received an email have already watched this video, so we're going to move on to the next slide in the presentation. In September of 2022, Indiana announced a memorandum of understanding that was entered into by 7 states, which was signed by Governor Holcomb. That document is also part of the attachments from the email that you received. The hydrogen superhighway more than exceeds the stated objectives of that memorandum of understanding. Plus, the mayor of Lawrenceburg has spoken with us and has made available prime land that's adjacent to busy US 50 to do a full-scale demonstration of this project. We have in writing support from everybody that matters. I would like to read one statement from Dr. Addison Bain, PhD, NASA H2 Hydrogen Program Manager. He's retired. That states, the HSH is worthy of full development and when fully implemented will be of great benefit to the states and countries which adopt this system. And Dr. Bain's full letter and his extensive biography was attached to the email as well. Lawrenceburg has many strategic synergies that will work for the state of Indiana to move this project forward in a leadership role. Ivy Tech for workforce high-tech jobs development is a perfect match, particularly with its additions in research labs in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. A prime demonstration location on US 50 at the Dearborn County Fairgrounds and the home of the historic Lawrenceburg Speedway has been put into the mix. The project initial ride will consist of straightaways, curves, and elevation changes. And again, Ivy Tech would be the greatest beneficiary due to a focus on vocational skills training, not only in Lawrenceburg, in Southeast Indiana, possibly across the entire state. Just a side note, Indiana, if they want to, as an option, could decide to use their influence, however, due to our location for this demonstration project in the tri-state epicenter location where Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana converge on the Ohio River and a really prime location. This is a picture of the general area. You can see the I-275 bridge crossing the Ohio River, Kentucky on the other side, right next to Ohio. And that's a little larger picture of Lawrenceburg and Greendale. And this is a zoom in picture where you can see the Lawrenceburg Speedway, the fairgrounds in front of that, a gravel parking lot up front, right up against US 50, and that large road right across the street from the fairground entrance is actually the grand entrance to the Lawrenceburg Hollywood Casino. So our agenda, we've already taken our 4-minute ride. We will cover a range of issues. One is to review a modified US Air Force 3-part continuing education credit program that our founder, Justin Sutton, has done many times with the US Department of Defense in the range of tech seminars where officers get continuing education credits. There will be remarks on hydrogen and hydrocarbons and a remark about a brighter, more rapid path forward for this project. The hydrogen superhighway is a state-of-the-art convergence of energy and transportation solutions. I'm going to take just a second on this slide because it's important to bulk hydrogen. Our founder became a real subject matter expert with testimony and with educational resources to the US DoD. Most of that started with an initiative that the DoD did at Joint Base Pearl Harbor called Hawaii Center for Advanced Transportation Technologies and the Advanced Power Technology Office, where they put a solar field at Schofield Barracks at Joint Base Pearl Harbor to separate water, to take the hydrogen and oxygen and store it, and then use that to fuel ground support vehicles. The DoD published, and the U.S. Air Force Research Lab, HSCAT, published in 2002 about that project. That gave our founder a very convincing platform to publish as well his work, and several reasons that the DoD likes hydrogen as a future fuel and would love to see infrastructure commercially built to support that is that when they use hydrogen rather than JP8 jet fuel, for instance, they can get up to 2 to 3 times the range when they fly with that fuel. And the reason is because the carbon weight is gone. They also have better preventive maintenance schedules because the carbon buildup is mitigated, and they do not have as much soot trail to mitigate as well, which is a safety issue from a signature standpoint. So these primary learning objectives that Justin would cover in these seminars would consist of the history of hydrogen, the hydrogen superhighway smart grid, and the essentials of public-private partnerships. So let's move on to learning objective number 1, the history of hydrogen. Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. It's the first element on the periodic table. It's the lightest element. It's normally tied to carbon on Earth in the context of a fuel, but it is prolific as water on Earth as H2O or water. Hydrogen was first isolated in 1671. It is the Greek name for hydrogen is water creator. And that was, so hydrogen was coined by the father in modern chemistry. And there's really extensive research available on hydrogen. The link at the bottom is a really good resource there. Lavoisier, who coined hydrogen as a word, these are museum pics of his lab instruments back from the 1780s that are in our museum now. The Montgolfier brothers in 1783 flew the first hot air balloon. They did that in Versailles, France. It was a large hot air balloon. It wasn't very controllable on the landing. And when it landed in Versailles, the local citizens actually came out with pitchforks and attacked that balloon, not knowing what it was. Just 3 months later, though, Jacques Charles flew the first hydrogen balloon. It was a smaller balloon. It did not need any hot air, and it was much easier to control. Then along came the first hydrogen engine in 1807. The Hipmobile came along in 1863. There were about 500 of those made and sold. This Hipmobile carried its own internal combustion engine that burned hydrogen for propulsion. Then we move into the modern era. This is a picture of the BMW V12 internal combustion engine, a picture of the engine itself. This is a V10 Ford Super Chief hydrogen vehicle. The engine in that V10, the inside of the cab of that Ford Super Chief. But what's really happened in the market now is all the major engine manufacturers in the world have hydrogen engines, either fueled through hydrogen fuel cells or internal combustion engines ready to go. Toyota, Honda, Hyundai are all on the US market with vehicles. They're ready with hydrogen. GM ran a successful challenge with a pickup truck in Afghanistan with the military, and that vehicle they found the military some added advantages. Of course, it ran silently, and they were capturing water from the burn of the hydrogen that the troops were able to drink. Ford came out quite some time ago. Alan Mulally, when he still was CEO, did an interview for Forbes where he went on record and said, Ford is very bullish on hydrogen, but what we need now is for clean, renewable hydrogen production, storage, and distribution so we can build in volume. And that's exactly what the hydrogen superhighway is about. Toyota is very, very sophisticated in hydrogen. They have over 22 patents that they've made available for free use till at least 2030 for people that want to use their hydrogen patents to propel this great evolution. In the air, hydrogen was developed for the Blackbird. It also runs on jet fuel, but it certainly can run on hydrogen, and hydrogen is very powerful for that vehicle. Rockets, hydrogen rockets. The scramjet for hypersonic flights are fueled with hydrogen. Here's a picture of the scramjet at Edwards Air Force Base. When Justin would do this training, just a few years ago, on the information for the defense community website, the term hydrogen-powered jet craft was yielding about 1,630 articles from searches. Now, just a few years later, when you query that in their basis, there's over 2,600 categories that return from the search. Let's move on to learning objective number 2, the hydrogen superhighway and sustainable bulk hydrogen production. The hydrogen superhighway is a system that was designed to upgrade the interstate highway network. But really, it's so much more. It can be applicable for any right-of-way, be it national, state, county, local, toll roads, private roads, railroads, power line corridors. For example, in the county in Southeast Indiana, there's been discussion that this system situations to connect to the main sewage plant that's down closer to the Ohio River. The system has a superior turning radius. Certainly 90 feet is very, very doable, and it can turn as tight as 60 feet. It climbs hills extremely well. There are no base roads to install, so there's no limitations on what kind of terrain we can take this system over for everybody's benefit. So the hydrogen superhighway integration was designed for the interstate system, but it covers all the other right-of-way situations. Number one, when you look at this, you're going to see 2 vehicles on the main track rail, which is closest to the highway you see. That's a track that all the traveler vehicles can ride on. What you're seeing above that track is a side track that's coming off the main track, so cars can, travel vehicles can go on that track and actually make ingress and egress available for different locations all along the way, or you can simply stay on the main track and express by those locations. The round loops that you see are called store and forward loops. And when a travel vehicle goes in those loops, if they're waiting for a passenger to pick up, they can just circle and the next vehicle can come in. It may stop, pick up its passengers that are ready to go, and the other can keep going, but the other can circle around back onto the main track. If you look up at the loop just above that one, you'll see a vehicle on that loop as well. And that actually is a car ferry that can take you with your vehicle or just your vehicle without you. So stops and for ingress and egress can happen all along the way, or you just express back for your ride if you already know your final destination. So what is the hydrogen superhighway? It's a transportation system. It's a solar energy collection grid. It's a system that uses millions of tons of stainless steel, creates many thousands of jobs for our nation, and has a DoD point of impact as well. Let's break apart some of the elements of the hydrogen superhighway. If you look at this schematic, you'll see the maglev rail pair. Those are built to have multi-purpose transports on them. They're filled with magnet packs. Take a look back at the transport arrow. This can transport people, cars, trucks, ISO containers on the system. It can all be intermixed. This isn't having a long train that can only run a few times a day. You got to match a schedule. All of these different items can be interspersed on the tracks. So there's no delays for people waiting for freight priorities or vice versa. On those travel vehicles, there are articulating arms to mitigate G forces. At the bottom of those arms, wrapped around the rail, are motors with opposing nacelles to move the transports along the maglev filled rails. Slotted linear motors are nothing new, but this is a superior design for power, and these slotted linear motors at the bottom of the articulating arms also wrap around the rail, so there's no derailments happening with this system. Stanchion poles make this an above grade system, so we're typically about 35 feet above ground level, and that allows us to be, in a safe manner, truly high speed. Think when you're out in the open country, 240 miles plus. The rail gauge between the two inner top male maglev rail pairs is a 12-foot gauge. That's over 2.5 times the standard size of current railroad from around the world and in the US. It can actually, those were designed years ago to handle the back end of 2 mules side by side. Now we have a system that's large enough to handle 2 ISO container freights side by side on this large scale system. This is just a picture of solar skin on the rail, which is our solar power voltaic connection to the system, where we get our energy from, so we can split water into hydrogen and oxygen. Let's take a little closer look at the truly multimodal vehicles that ride this system. Passengers can ride alone in luxury or standing vehicles with a lot of people, or vehicles that spread people over a nicer situation of seating. Freight, again, can be taken 2 ISO containers side by side. Aggregate can be shipped, and vehicles with or without people. There's no waiting on priorities. Again, no fights of passenger versus freight. This totally enhances just-in-time advantages for industries, people, individual teams of people. In our ferry cars, we have active floor restraints. They're pressure sensitive in the floor. They spin up to hold your vehicle and or freight that may be in that vehicle. The large scale of this allows us to take full 18-wheelers with their cabs. There are accommodations in these for sleeping and restroom facilities and anything to make that truck driver person more comfortable in their ride as well. So they can go with their vehicle, or the vehicle can just be sent along for the next person up in the stop. This is a triage traveler. I can tell you this is very, our founder is very partial to this, because this is about emergency medical services. And when something goes wrong and someone is injured, the golden hour, the first hour, is critical to saving lives. And this helps enhance those opportunities so much as well. That can be also done in a larger sense for a hospital vehicle. In this vehicle, you'll notice that there's an ambulance in this vehicle. There's lots of room to give it much more capability, from staff to medical emergency operating rooms on down the road. So this is just a picture of a vehicle that can be tailored to fit your specifications, from austere as you want it to as luxurious as you want it. Any of these vehicles can be purchased. They can be leased. The leases can be leased. Companies can control vehicles at the times they want to and schedule vehicles. Very flexible system because of the nature of these traveler vehicles that can accommodate virtually any situation. We do rapid installation of this. No access roads are needed. We install from the rail. And the poles that we use, the stanchion poles, are way less obtrusive than laying 4 or 8 lanes of concrete, which are a little difficult to deal with in growing environments. The spread on the stanchion poles in a general situation is about 88 feet. This is just another picture of the rapid installation crane with the stanchions and rail parts that follow. The rail center can handle 100 tons. This crane, you can see, has 12 motors on it, 6 on each side. So the weight that can be handled with a crane like this is over 140,000 pounds, 70 plus tons. I'm not going to go into deep detail on this picture, but this is a cutout of our elevated magnetation levitation rail system, which has been totally computer vetted, really off the chart performance, just a better mousetrap, quite frankly. So what do we do best? What we do best is clean water and bulk hydrogen. You can call that water from virtually any source on the water. You can call that water brown water, gray water, runoff water, salt water, even sewage if it has enough water content. This is a picture of a utility substation that's integral to the hydrogen superhighway. We install utility substations about every 3 miles along our routes. And this is where we, after track and utility substations are set up, that every day that our world turns into the light, there is lots of clean water and bulk hydrogen available to use, which will show you some of those formulas in a few slides. I want to mention one thing here. In the internet space, which we become to rely on so much as our world, when that system started, I was fortunate to have worked in that business. And in the internet space, packets in the internet travel on what are called sonnet fiber rings, which stands for synchronous optical networks. Some terminology you'll hear is self-healing rings. That's because if there's a cut in the ring, the information on those rings is going in both directions at the same time. And if there's a cut, there's an active path and a passive path. The passive path actually picks up because it's already running. And most times there's very few packets, if any packets, lost in transmissions. And those sonnet fiber rings work in effect in local environments, in regional environments, and in nationwide environments. And to have a larger physical self-healing grid for other municipal conduit, things that go through municipal conduits, can really become much better for the essential needs of all the humans that we have in the United States and then people around the world. We have very sophisticated calculators, so we can generate where these systems would be mapped, how much energy output we have, how much hydrogen and electrons we can produce, how much commodity municipal utilities that we can transfer along the systems. This is just a picture of a half scale to make areas that may get an advantage from more vegetation and clean water. This is a picture of a full scale that has the ability to rain down water to help with more fuel crops, more food grade crops, and helps our crop pollinators, which are important to our planet. I know our founder is really proud of this. This is a grand arbor system. It's designed to take arid land to productive land in the world. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has studies out that says an acre of forested land absorbs 6 tons of CO2 and releases 4 tons of oxygen. So this is a grand arbor system that supports trees and grasses and fruits and nuts and water to tend to those items as well. This is just a further Grand Harbor picture that enhances quality of place where we go because of the water that's available and the good access to very affordable and very speedy transportation. So let's have some fun for a minute. This is just a rail plane concept for a hydrogen-powered jet aircraft that can land on the rail, couple to the rail, decouple from the rail, do a vertical takeoff, really kind of fun stuff for future as well. This is a picture of a single stage to orbit vehicle that has 8 turbine jets and 8 scramjets. And just another picture of that as well. This is a larger scale central scramjet that's a single stage takeoff and relanding. So let's go to learning objective number 3, which is the essentials of public-private partnerships, which is all about the money. So in years past, when railroads started, railroad bonds funded a lot of railroads. This system, as opposed to other systems, almost every transportation system has their transit as a funding source, as a revenue source, and advertising. But this system has so much more, and you can see those listed here. So the money side of it is public-private partnerships are very important. So we have revenue plans, per capita revenue sharing for levels of government and for public trust foundations that would be obligated to be paid as right-of-ways are used to have this system serve the public and serve other needs as well, like DoD needs. I'm going to go back a slide. If the interstate system of 54 miles became a hydrogen superhighway flanked system, these are the numbers. From a job standpoint, this is a 750 million ton of stainless steel project, a lot of jobs. And the calculators are very fun to play with the amount of hydrogen and electrons that we create in a renewable manner. So we're going to go on to a slide after this, but I want to point out on top of this box beam that hold the public conduits, there's 4 foot of space on each of the tops of this rail. So that's 8 feet of solar panels that are on top of our rails. That's what we use to see the sun every day, to use the power of the sun renewably, to have the energy to take any water source and separate it into hydrogen and oxygen. So let's look at what that means from a numbers standpoint. So the total solar area on a dual track, 1 mile of this rail, dual track meaning we're going down the side of one side of a highway and down the other side of a highway, which is a good redundancy system as well, equates to 84,480 square feet of solar panels per mile. From round numbers, we're going to base the number calculations below on just 12 watts per square foot of solar panels that crank out 50 kilowatts of hydrogen. Just 1 mile of this rail is expected to generate 1 megawatt per hour, 20 kilograms of hydrogen. If we take that 1 hour a day up to 5 hours a day, that goes up to 100 kilograms of hydrogen. Just 5 hours a day, conservative number. So in a year, 1 mile of rail is expected to generate 1.825 gigawatts per year, 36,500 kilograms of hydrogen. Therefore, 100 miles, just 100 miles of this rail is expected to generate 182.5 gigawatts per year, 3.6 million kilograms of hydrogen. Pretty powerful stuff. Thought on hydrocarbons. Here's the molecular structure of a hydrocarbon. But the takeaway I want to leave here is not to get into a detailed discussion, but just to mention that hydrogen is the active ingredient in all hydrocarbons, whether it's natural gas, jet fuel, etc. And the carbon is just the unburnt items out that are left after the active ingredient is gone. So to have clean made hydrogen available is really a path to the future. So we've been real fortunate. This gentleman, Dr. Addison Bain, is just a prince of a human being. He's a founding member of the National Hydrogen Association, the International Association for Hydrogen Energy. He's had 4 decades of designing, operating, maintaining hydrogen systems for the US military and NASA. He's the first chairman of the US Department of Energy from the Hydrogen Safety Panel standpoint. He's the gentleman that went to the US Senate and got a congressional record on October 6, 1988, that was in reference to the true story of the Hindenburg disaster. And just a quick note, he's written several books. We can make them available. You see them on the left of his picture. He got Congress to pass a resolution that changed a plaque that sat next to a replica of the Hindenburg in the Smithsonian. Within its plaque, it used to say it's hydrogen exploded. It doesn't say that anymore. That's not at all what happened. Dr. Bain, in his book, actually even interviewed the gentleman that dubbed in the first explosive sounds that were ever put in a newsreel that were running in the theaters back in those days. Dr. Bain is on the honor roll of the Smithsonian on the National Mall. He's in the National Air and Space Museum Wall of Honor. And what Dr. Bain says about this project is that it's worthy of full development, and when fully implemented will be of great benefit to the states and countries which adopt this system. And that letter again was made available in your attachments. I just want to say to Indiana, thank you, Indiana. Lawrenceburg, Indiana is my hometown. I'm a proud Hoosier. I spent 37 plus years of my career in Detroit. I'm back in Indiana to have this project roll out from Indiana. It's worthy of rolling out here. Let's engage together and lead our nation from the true crossroads of America, Indiana. Let's do whatever it takes. Let's do this. Thank you, Indiana.